This is episode 10 of Post Production Podcast. Hello and welcome all you amazing, wonderful, geeky Star Wars and other movie fans out there in the world. This is Post Production Podcast. Welcome. We're going to have a little Star Wars episode today. It's a little pre-Star Wars geeky special that we're going to do for you. I'm your host, Mr. Drew, and of course with me today is Adam.
Yes,
welcome,
what's up,
Adam.
man?
Great. All right, so this week we've gone through and we've done our prep for Star Wars. This weekend, The Last Jedi is dropping on Thursday night, Friday.
Yes.
So we've prepared ourselves. We've kind of gone through and I've rewatched all the old ones, 1 through 7.
Yes. So these are the final days before The Last Jedi drops. So we're gonna do a little bit of a ranking, our definitive, not really, but our personal rankings of the episodic films. And then we'll go into our final kind of predictions for The Last Jedi.
Right.
So, do you want to start out?
My worst one was episode 2, The Clone Wars.
That was my worst one too.
That was absolutely the worst.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would say The Phantom Menace, but I stand by like completely that Attack of the Clones is the worst movie.
Yeah. And I'm not 100% sure, but this bugged me so bad. I think that because in Phantom Menace you had Ian McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he was young, he didn't have any facial hair. But in episode 2, right? in Attack of the Clones, he has his facial hair. It's fake.
Yeah, it's completely fake, and it looks
it's like
bad.
They covered his face in glue, and he just face planted into some loose curlies, and you're like,
he just hugged a Wookiee,
wow,
basically.
It's so bad. I mean, it's embarrassingly bad. So number 7 or worst, episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, for me, like Attack of the Clones, it's there's so much wrong with it. There's so many bad parts to it. Well, first of all, like the love stuff with Anakin and Padme, it's cringe-worthy to watch. The dialogue, the acting, it's just not there. And so that for me, it automatically puts it to the bottom. But there's a few redeeming qualities to the movie, but not very many.
The cringe thing for me on that was Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
And not him as an actor. I mean, anybody that you're gonna cast in that role is gonna have a challenge. But I mean, they picked not only someone that just looked just so immature, but I mean, the way he acted and his dialogue was just like, you're a baby, like you're acting like a baby, and you're crying like a baby, you're whining like a baby. I mean, it ruins everything that you want to believe that Anakin is this kind of force to be reckoned with, and it's just horrible.
Yeah, because this is Darth Vader we're talking about, and you're showing him like this. It's such a weird way to present things, basically. And when you give bad dialogue to your actors, they don't have a lot to deal with. And with George Lucas, how he approached the prequels was he had a singular vision, and he didn't have a lot of collaboration of people saying, hey, maybe you should do this instead of this. This was the movie that he wrote, and he wasn't going to let anyone change that.
Yeah.
Whereas like on the original movies, the original trilogy, there were other writers and other even directors. So that collaboration was just not there. And then, of course, it's a big CGI fest again.
Yeah.
Number 7, worst one.
Worst one. So all right. So going up. So number 6 was for me The Phantom Menace.
Yeah, that's what I had as well.
I mean, I actually enjoyed the young Anakin. I thought it was
Yeah,
cool.
I thought
The pod racing was a lot of fun.
yes.
The storyline was cool. I cringed, and I think that everyone cringes now, and I think Disney and Star Wars and the canon cringes that they brought up this midichlorian count.
Yeah, they're never gonna mention it again,
and they're never going to mention it again. Hopefully, I think the singular bad thing of this movie was, of course, Jar Jar Binks. And everyone hates on Jar Jar Binks, and
you know what? I'm gonna stand by Jar Jar Binks because I was a little kid when the Phantom Menace came out, and after seeing that movie, I had a bunch of Jar Jar Binks stuff. I was Jar Jar Binks for Halloween. Everyone probably hated me, and I didn't know, but I have like this special place. Just like little kids in 1983 saw the Ewoks, and they were like, "Oh, those are the cutest things in the world." That's me with Jar Jar Binks. I totally get it. He's annoying. Watching the first one recently, it's like, yeah, he's annoying, and it's so out of place that, yeah, I understand people's thing, but it's that nostalgia childhood kind of thing for me that I'm okay with it, and I kind of laugh at it now, like I look at it fondly, basically.
Right.
But
I mean, I get it. There's sort of this. I don't know if it's this Star Wars theme where we have to have this kind of this
for the kids
figure in there, this kids thing in there. I mean, we had the Ewoks, we had Jar Jar Binks,
we got BB-8, and
we got BB-8,
the Porgs.
And now we have the Porgs coming. Which
the Porgs are coming.
The Porgs are coming. Oh my God! Get your merchandise now. It's just gonna be a fest on that. But yeah, so number 6, I had episode 1, Phantom Menace.
Some great things about the Phantom Menace though were, of course, Darth Maul, and this is the first time we saw a double-sided lightsaber. This was the first time we saw a lightsaber fight, like that style of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the best thing about the Phantom Menace is the lightsaber fights.
Right.
That final scene is still amazing to me. The one between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul. It's still like, I haven't actually done a ranking of like the lightsaber fights, but it's up there for me. It's like, it still entertains me. It still makes my heart race. So yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes. The pod racing, again, I loved. And because I was a little kid, I saw myself as Anakin. You kind of put yourself into that role. And so yeah, I remember, I think it was kindergarten, yeah, had a little Anakin Skywalker pod racing backpack and lunchbox, and I was rocking it, man. So yeah, I actually love that movie for what it is.
And it was a toy fest after that, I think. I mean, not only with the video games,
well, because but
George
Lucas is a marketing merchandise genius.
I mean, I remember my original toys from Star Wars back in the 70s and 80s, and I had the Millennium Falcon. I had the big, and let me just give you a little bit of context here. I was a destructive child. Like, I tore apart, mangled, if it could be dismantled and unscrewed and, reverse engineered, I figured out a way to do it. I didn't have a single G.I. Joe that didn't have a bullet hole in it that I'd gouged with that big sharp spike that you had on a compass that you had for your school supplies. Wow. That I colored in with red marker to give it.
That's hilarious.
My Hot Wheels had scratches and dents and cracked windshields, but I got to say that Millennium Falcon was so burly. It took all my abuse and still looked like a Millennium Falcon. That thing was indestructible, I swear.
I guess that's pretty accurate, I guess.
Yeah, I remember that thing as fondly. It was amazing. It was so big. You could do so much things with it. I mean, you could serve hors d'oeuvres on it. It was so big. But anyway, okay, moving on. So next one, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rank 5 I had episode 3.
Man, I have a feeling that we have the same. We'll see when we get up there, but as of right now, we have the same ranking.
I had episode 3. I mean, this is that episode where Anakin becomes Darth Vader. It's iconic. It's immersive. I really don't believe that they told the story in a way that gave it the depth that it deserved, that gave it the importance that it deserved.
Yeah.
I get it. I can kind of see where, there was this, everything's perspective and everything's a point of view. And that's where, this all kind of comes to accumulation. But, I think there's a couple of specific things that I wanted to talk about. One being, I know Chancellor Palpatine and the Emperor, for some people, they're like he is like their favorite character.
Yeah, because he's this genius that has written this plan for years and years and years.
And I don't think he gives the credit that he's deserved. I mean, as far as going through any other movie, canon or trilogy or series or franchise, this guy is the ultimate.
It's the ultimate villain.
He's the I wouldn't say he's the ultimate villain. He's the ultimate manipulator. I mean, this guy can plan and scheme and set something up.
Yeah,
decades.
He's playing the long game.
He's playing the super long game. And he just knocked it out of the park. But yeah, I really enjoyed the episode. We had the most iconic fight between two Force wheelers, and I think, and even Lucas said there will never, ever in history be another battle between two of the same color lightsabers.
Has he really said that?
I think he said that. Or maybe that will be the only blue on blue lightsaber battle, I think, is what he specifically said.
Okay, because actually I would be happy if that was the case, because it's so iconic. That poster, I remember the poster of Anakin versus Obi-Wan on the lava planet clashing blue lightsabers. Like, it's so, like, the imagery is just, it's so good. And that's probably actually my favorite, with the Phantom Menace fight being probably my second favorite fight. This is my first. You know that Obi-Wan, that they both live, but they're just going at it with full force.
Right.
Like, Anakin is trying to kill Obi-Wan, and you feel that. It's not just dancing around and doing flips. Like, every strike is trying to chop their head off, basically. The end is questionable, how the fight scene ends.
Yeah.
But of course, that's the stuff that you run into when you're doing a prequel story. It's like, we have to have this confrontation, but we also have to have it that both of them walk away somehow.
It has to come to a head.
Yeah, it has to come to a head, but not in death, because we know that both of these characters flipped. So, the ending, high ground, kind of that whole scene, that aside, it's my favorite lightsaber.
That was fine. They had to do it one way or another. I liked the immediate after of that. I loved that he was just crawling. He was still crawling. He still wanted to get to him.
Yeah.
The hate and the anger and that right there, that's the transformation that we were looking for.
And that's something that should have carried the whole movie.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, he's still like, you would never even think that he has any dark side in him.
Yeah.
I think that the transition into darkness should have happened like the beginning of the second one, where the second, like episode 2, you can really see him like being questionable and like doing things that are like, hey, like, you're taking things a little too far.
Right.
You're doing things a little too dark. You're venturing
You're
off
crossing
on
these
another.
lines. Yeah.
That's what they should have done, and I think they tried that, but it didn't work, because in the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, it's like he's just a Jedi.
He's still who he is. Yeah,
he's having a good time with the old Obi-Wan.
He did decapitate Count Dooku,
but that was
that was forced by the Emperor. But I mean, I think the failing is you don't see how he can go in the breadth of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
He went from Jedi to
killing kids.
Yeah. Which is a massive shift in morality and sense of self and purpose. And you just don't see, like, how did he get there? We're missing content. We're missing a ton of content that gives you that kind of...
Even in the beginning of the fight between Mace Windu and the Emperor, like that whole scene, because that's supposed to be the turning point for Anakin to Darth Vader. That's supposed to be, but it doesn't seem like it.
No.
And because even in the beginning of the fight, Anakin is still there. Like, you still see Anakin, but at the end of it, it's like he's completely Darth Vader, and then he goes and kills some kids. If we had, because we see a lot of Palpatine manipulation, like what you're talking about, in this movie, we didn't see a whole lot of it in the second one. And that's something that they should have introduced in the second one, so you can see the wheels kind of turning in Anakin's head. And, maybe he's not all the way there, but by the end of the second movie, but you see that he's dangerously there. That's just how I would do it, but...
I think, I mean, in a plot standpoint, I think, episode 3 had the most problems. I mean, because you just don't see there's so many questions, but I still rank it above the other two because
it's more entertaining.
It's more entertaining, but I mean, this is that iconic kind of, convergence that you were waiting for. So, I still rank it above the other two.
Yeah.
So now going on to number 4.
Number 4 on our list.
I have episode 6, Return of the Jedi.
Oh, good. Okay, yes, I have Return of the Jedi too. Dang, we are two
We're on
peas.
point. We're on point. Yeah. And I think only because I think of the original trilogy, this was the weakest of the 3.
Yes.
You can definitely see that the writing is different. The budget was increased, I think. But that's where, of course, when you increase your budget and you're trying to cram special effects, and then you have problems with story and content. So, I mean, I could talk about this one for ages and ages and ages. I mean, I remember growing up that this one was my favorite growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
Because there was a green lightsaber, and because there was there was so much more stuff, and then of course the Ewoks, which were fun as a kid. But then you kind of, as you grow older and you get a little bit more mature and you have a better understanding of content, story, effect, and how things make you feel. Yeah. The Return of the Jedi makes you feel, oh, okay, cool, this is exciting, it's action packed, and there's all this stuff, and then it's the Empire is gone and it's all over, cool, but that's all it is. It's a roller coaster of fast emotions, not deep seated emotions, versus
there's
Empire
not a whole
Strikes
lot of
Back, where it really everything sinks in.
Yeah, for me, like the middle is pretty forgettable for me. I love the Jabba's palace scene. I love the end fight on Endor with and then of course the final confrontation with Darth Vader and Luke with the Emperor. I love those scenes, but I think everything in the middle kind of just fades away for me. And yeah, I mean, I actually think that I saw this more than other Star Wars movies, like as a kid. I remember maybe I was like 5 or 6, my 5th or 6th birthday. I was having a Godzilla themed birthday party. You remember that Godzilla that came out in like 1999 or something like that? Oh yeah,
Matthew Broderick.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. Love it. So good.
That's how much I knew back then.
So good.
But I just remember Return of the Jedi playing in the background. That's like one of my good memories as a kid. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's still a great movie. It is the weakest of the original 3. Yeah. I mean, that's not too much else to say about it for me, but.
So here's an interesting kind of transition of, I think, as far as the fans are concerned. Because the original trilogy came out, episode 4, 5, 6, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Fantastic. Yeah. And then it's closed and it's over, and that's pretty much done. We've got books, we've got other things coming out. Fine. George Lucas goes back, he revisits everything. He releases the first 3 episodes to tie everything together. And now everything's boiling to a big questionable kind of what's canon, what's not canon, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Mm-hmm. Where do the lines get drawn? Because a lot of people like to go back to Return of the Jedi and they go, look, Luke is not a Jedi.
Yeah.
He's more gray, this new term gray Jedi, than he is anything else, because he starts out using Force choke on the guards in Jabba's palace, which is not a Jedi power.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, what?
So now it flips everything on its head.
So it's like, okay, so now where is Luke's progression?
Yeah.
And that brings us into where is his mindset, and where is his actual kind of status on that line of light, dark, middle ground going into The Last Jedi.
Yeah. We'll talk about that when we get into predictions. But that is a point that I want to talk about.
So, it's interesting, when you watch it back in the day and your earliest, recollections of watching it, none of that has any context. None of that has any meaning, because there isn't enough canon. There isn't enough established
there are
lines and rules drawn at that point. It's just, hey, here's a movie, enjoy it.
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And now everybody's going back and go, well, why did he do this? And does it have meaning? Which probably, in the scope of things, George Lucas was like, yeah, man, I just made a movie.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
There's a lot of things with that.
And now I'm getting bastardized and strung up because, I'm not following these specific rules that came out a decade later. Okay, fine, whatever. Okay, so moving right along, I have so getting into the top 3, I have number 3 as The Force Awakens, episode 7.
Yeah.
We're on point here.
We're the same.
We're the same on this one. So,
episode 7, Force Awakens, came out a couple of years ago. Of course, we all know. For me, Force Awakens is a highly entertaining movie. I think it's a pretty great follow-up to Return of the Jedi. I think it answers enough questions. It has enough things where it's like, okay, I could see this as the natural progression after 30 years. At least for me. Mm-hmm. I thought it did a good job of telling the characters that we know, like their stories, whether that was Han Solo or Leia, where they kind of ended up. I thought that was really interesting. We got the introduction of these new characters, Rey, Kylo Ren, Finn, Poe. And I watched it 3 times in the theaters. Although a lot of people would say it's a rehash of A New Hope, I think, of course, there are definite elements that you could be like, yeah, that's like straight out of A New Hope. But I think they do enough to differentiate themselves that it's not a complete rehash. I think there's enough stuff that, no, this is its own movie. And people who say it's a complete rehash, I'm a little questioning about that, because it's not. I'm going to put my foot down. It's not.
Okay.
I'm just going to put that out there.
Okay, so I thought that The Force Awakens was shoddy at best.
Well, you put it at number 3.
I did put it at number 3 because, okay, now as a movie, it's entertaining, it's fantastic, it's energetic, it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
And everything in that aspect, I loved it. It's so much fun to watch. I watched it again this morning. It was the last one I had to kind of pull through. And I actually watched it, and I, paid close attention to it. But here's, and this is why I say it's shoddy. Okay. Now, it's excusable for me to look at the first 3 movies and go, you know what? He put together 3 movies and he connected A, B, and C. Okay. Well, okay. D, E, and F is what he connected. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So I get it. He was just making movies. You can go back to them now. You can criticize. Okay, cool. Then Lucas did the first 3 episodes to kind of tie in things, and there's a lot of inexcusable things in those movies, okay, which we've discussed. Okay, fine. Now we're starting a brand new kind of I guess arc. We're starting all these new things. It's 30 years later.
Uh-huh.
There's no tie-in. Okay. Because if I was to watch 1 through 6 in a row without ever watching them before, and then I was to go right into 7, and I'm going, wait, hold on, man. Wait. I just left episode 6. Everyone's happy. I mean, Han and Leia are together, like concrete together. Like you still didn't even know until the end, and then it's like, oh yeah, we're brother sister, so it's cool. Yeah. And Han's like, yo man, she's all mine. Yeah. Booyah! I got the girl. Because you see that love, that emotional connection, that love in Empire Strikes Back. You see the culmination of it at the end, and you're going, cool, they're together. And then Luke is this big savior, and he's this Jedi, and everything's cool. And now 30 years later, wait, what? What's going on? Everything's just gone to hell in a handbasket. And there's there wasn't enough context for me.
But see...
Now, I don't know if that's going to get explained farther.
Absolutely. That's the thing. But you just didn't like that they started it off that way.
I don't like that they started it off that way.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm critical on the Han and Leia part, right? Because it's like, they're just not even together, and it's like, wait, how did you go from being like the super couple,
but also
at the end of it, and then going, oh, our son's gone, and then now we both hate each other because we remind each other of that, and there's all this conflict, and it wasn't like it was just so vague.
Yeah,
it was so ridiculously vague, okay. And I'm going, I don't see how they're at that point. There's not enough there for me to see how they're at that point. There's a lot of and for me that's where I say it's shoddy.
Yeah,
it's just like, okay, there's all these plot points that I don't know if there's original content that was cut because it was too long. It was just it was distracting too much, but it was like that is like. And I know we're trying to transition into new people and new storylines, but
you need a close.
You need a closure to that, and you can't just kill him off, like okay, well now he's done, and that's it, and we're just we need to write him out.
I get what you're saying. I get it.
So for me, that was like, and that's typical J.J. Abrams fashion. It's like, dude, you really missed this plot kind of point.
I think.
So for me, that was shoddy, but
that can all be explained in books and other things.
But see, here's the thing: it's like, are you asking people, or are you forcing people to go to this other content to get their answers? Because if you're going to bring it up in a movie, and this is the medium that you've chosen to bring up this point, then you need to begin and finish what you started. In that medium,
I guess, yeah.
Instead of forcing people, if you really want the story, you have to go read this book.
But also,
well, then why did you even bring it up?
Like, yeah, you feel like that, you feel that way, but it could be too early. It could be too early because we have 2 more movies. We have The Last Jedi, and then we have Episode 9. So things could potentially, we could get the whole thing, maybe even from Kylo's perspective of what happened. With his parents,
right?
So
that would be interesting.
Yeah, so and that's that thing, that classic J.J. Abrams thing, is like you present some information without giving us the whole thing, and maybe you'll pass it on to someone else to finish it up. So
right,
yeah, I mean, maybe I'm gonna say it's too early to say. I'm gonna say also that I'm okay with that, how it played into the movie, because for me it wasn't the most important thing for me.
Right.
I know it was for other people. Han and Leia, when you kind of realize that they've been apart, you can kind of make the connection like, yeah, that kind of seems that seems pretty possible that they split up in these 30 years, because even though they were in love and all this stuff, they were two very different people ultimately.
That is true. Yeah.
So I think they kind of left it up to the audience to be like, how do you feel about this?
But I am one of those people that thinks that this was a complete rehash of A New Hope.
Boo.
You know, so I just want to put this in a context of I get it. I see how they did it. I like how they did it. I just think they could have done it differently. Okay. I mean, because it's so point for point. You know, we're gonna start in a desert setting. We're gonna have a person who needs to leave the desert setting because of the conflict and everything for them is over, and they leave with the Millennium Falcon again. Okay, fine. But why did it have to be Jakku? Why did it have to be another Tantui? It could have been an urban setting. It could have been a jungle setting. It could have been a mountain setting. It could have been any other setting. But because you did exactly two desert settings, it's like, man, this looks like a complete rehash.
Well, here's the thing. The reason why they did it as a desert setting is because if it was like this city, if she was on Coruscant or if she was on, whatever, it's like, yeah, I could see myself going back there and living a good life and blah, blah, blah. But with Jakku, it's like, no, you don't want to go back there. They constantly say, like, it's a junkyard. It's a terrible place. You don't want to go back there. Why would you want to live there? So, and just as a storytelling element, the sand, the dirt, the monotone kind of and very bland setting, it makes it very undesirable and very uncomfortable.
Like, of all the places, why would you ever want to be here?
Exactly. And that's the whole point. And nothing says all of those things like a desert, If it wasn't a desert planet, and it, like, what other planet would it be that you would just be like, yeah, you don't want to go back there? It's, it doesn't give you that feeling of
bland bleakness, just
that desolate feeling. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So I get that. It's just, when you put everything into context, like, okay, desert planet, like, we're on the Millennium Falcon again. Oh, look, there's another Death Star.
Okay, that's the one thing. That's the one thing about Force Awakens that Starkiller Base is a waste of time. It's the fact that they make it like, oh yeah, it's like, and they even say like, no, it's not a Death Star. It's way bigger than a Death Star. They still blow it up like it's a Death Star.
Yeah, they still blow it up like a Death Star.
It's still like not even.
And they trivialize the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And even Han Solo like, so it's bigger.
We'll still blow it up.
What? Oh, it's got shields? We just take out the shields. Yeah. It's like he's got a quick comment for everything, every point that's brought up. Well, we're going to need this, that. He's like, well, we can do that. We can do that. We can do that. Yeah. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
I want it to feel like it's kind of a challenge.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
I get that.
But, so, beyond the implausibility of it,
yeah.
I mean, Death Star, I can get behind. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, but you have this planet that sucks up the sun and then shoots it out its ass. Whatever. I mean, it was so bad. But still, as a whole, it's a better entertaining movie than some of the other previous ones.
And for me, like, some of the best parts of it would be like Kylo Ren. Some people were saying, he's too moody. He's like Anakin. He's like Anakin again, but I think he's more complex than that. I think he is what Anakin should have been. His portrayal of it, of this kind of. He's still struggling, even though you see he kills people. You see him kill people like straight off the bat. You see that he's a bad guy, but you also, in those moments by himself, you see that he's kind of questioning his loyalty to the dark side. He's like, I feel the light pulling on me, and that's like super intriguing. And that's a different element to a bad guy that we haven't seen. We've seen good guys turn bad. We haven't seen a bad guy
struggling to stay bad.
Struggling to stay bad. Like, he wants to be bad, but he's struggling to be bad. And that's what sets Kylo Ren apart from the other things. So I love his character. I love the design of his character. I love his lightsaber. He's all good for me.
I like Kylo Ren. I love the design of him. I didn't like the tantrums. You know, I was just kind of like, I don't get the point of the tantrums. Like
but that sets him apart.
Devalued. Well, I think it could have been done in a better way. I mean, he's frustrated.
Yeah.
You know, I get that, but show me a little bit of control, like a tantamount of a little bit of control.
But that's the thing, is that he's not. He doesn't have that cool, calm, collected demeanor like a Darth Vader would. He's crazy, and that's another like imagery thing. Like with his lightsaber, it's like it's crackly and it's wild and it's, you know, it's different from everyone else's because it represents him basically. That's his personality. Is he's unpredictable basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the whole thing with him, is that like, yeah, you would want a little more of a collected villain, but the fact that he's not sets him apart. So yes, it is different. Maybe it's not the best thing for a lot of people, but it's still different, and it still is original.
So
I'm
I get
a defender.
That, you know,
defender.
that's fine. No, it's all about, you know, perspective. You know, and just the final thing I'm going to say about this before we go into the next movie is the power creep for Rey. You know, where she doesn't even know she has force powers, and then in like 15 minutes she's, you know, changing people's minds, and then at the end of the movie she's overpowering Kylo Ren, although wounded, whatever.
Yeah,
and I'm just kind of going, okay, so are they going to keep up with this power creep? Because by all standards, in the next 2 hours she could be able to just stomp over Snoke.
Yeah, well, and that's another thing.
The worst named villain ever. Just had to say that. Snoke. I mean, just.
But okay, so
just want to go. I want a time machine, and I want to go back.
You want to be on fly on the wall?
No, I'm gonna walk into that boardroom, and the person who goes Snoke, I'm gonna smack that person so hard, and just go, no Snoke, bad Snoke, end of Snoke.
And that's it.
And that's it. I get back in my Rick and Morty time machine and pickle Rick out.
Oh man. Okay, well, since we can't do that, as far as we know, we don't have a portal gun yet.
That's not possible yet.
Yeah, I'm okay with it for now. But that's another thing. Going back to the Rey like overpower thing, is that, look, this could all be explained furthermore in the following movies. You know, we don't know her background. We don't know who her parents are. We don't know any of this. So all of that could play into why she was able to do that. So we'll get into that with predictions and stuff for The Last Jedi, but
it was a puberty spurt.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, so that leaves, you know, of course, 2 movies left. The number 2 spot going to the very first movie made, original Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope.
Yes, this is what started everything. This is why we're having this conversation, this movie. And
I don't, you know, and I pity. I feel sad. Like I'm generally sad for this generation and any future generations, because our technology and our comfort level with sci-fi and technology and spaceships and outer space and everything that we've kind of been subjected to and that we're used to is so familiar now that there's not a plane of shock that I can imagine that, you know, anyone is going to be able to enjoy like we enjoyed at that time when we saw Star Wars for the first time. Because it was like nothing ever that anyone had seen, and it was a complete shock and awe. And you left the theater. I mean, I was just an infant, basically.
Yeah.
But even I remember that, you know, I was a part of something different.
Yeah.
And, you know, my parents were big, you know, I mean, at that time, I mean, they were, my mom was a big technology buff, and we had one of the very first VHS machines ever, you know, and my dad got a pirated copy of Star Wars before it, you know, it even hit, you know, the VHS stores, the movie stores. And I watched that thing over and 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 over again until it was basically an unwatchable, grainy, striped mess of a movie. Because, you know, if anybody has any experience with VHS, the more you watch it, the crappier it gets.
Yeah,
the more wear and tear the tape gets. So, I mean, it got to an unwatchable point where, I mean, the VHS machine basically said, yeah, I can't play this.
Like,
I can't.
Don't give me that again.
I'm chewing on it, man. But yeah, I feel sad for your generation and any future generation, because I don't think there's going to be anything that quite, you know, that groundbreaking.
And people are going to look back at A New Hope and say, yeah, this looks like shit.
Yeah.
Whereas back then it was the best thing that you could watch.
Yeah, it was. It was amazing.
And that's what's so mind-blowing, that whole thing, you know, the difference of opinion that, you know, two people who are alive today can say, yeah, Star Wars was like this groundbreaking thing that I've never seen before, and then another person is like, yeah, I've been seeing this all my life.
Yeah.
Like, and this is actually doesn't even look good.
And it was all practical effects.
Yeah.
You know, it was all practical effects. And even back then, I mean, the I guess the CGI of that time was the stop motion claymation type stuff, and even that wasn't even in it. It was all practical effects. So, you know, I mean, this will always be, you know, one of the most iconic movies in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I
love this is, I mean, other than my number one, this is such a rewatchable movie. You know, this is, if you just want to do nothing and stay home, just throw in Star Wars. It'll put you in a good mood. And
so I actually have a question for you.
Okay.
Have you seen the actual original Star Wars, or have you seen the remastered Star Wars?
I've probably only seen the remastered ones. I might have seen the original one when I was a kid, like when I first saw A New Hope. But yeah, because like in the original one, like Jabba the Hutt is an actual guy, right?
No, Jabba the Hutt's not even in the first one.
Oh.
You know how you see Jabba in the spaceport before they all get on the Millennium Falcon? That scene's not even in the original Star Wars. You don't see Jabba. Oh, wow. You don't physically see Jabba until Return of the Jedi.
Because I've seen like a clip of the original, because Jabba was like a guy, and like and this is always a weird thing when you see A New Hope, is when Han Solo was talking to him in the little port, the spaceport, he walks behind him, and he walks behind him because he's a guy, and they hadn't figured that Jabba the Hutt was this Hutt that had a tail. So in the remastered ones, you see this really shoddy Han Solo like
step over his tail.
Yeah.
But in the theatrical release of Star Wars, that scene wasn't in it. That spaceport scene was never in it.
But was it on the VHS?
Nope.
I'm gonna look that up.
Nope.
I don't trust you.
Nope.
Okay.
No, because you don't physically see Jabba until Return of the Jedi. They
just refer to him.
They just refer to him. Okay. Yeah. And then in the remastered, they throw in this horrible CGI of him in the spaceport, and Han Solo walks around and steps on his tail, and then he actually gets in close and almost superimposes himself on. Yeah, it's bad. The explosions are different. Everything's different in the actual original theatrical
I'd love to see
release.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Which, of course, leaves the number one spot to Empire Strikes Back.
The one and only Empire. I can't say enough about this movie. It's my favorite. I mean, this is the most rewatchable one for me. It's just so good. Everything about it. I mean, I think it has some of the most important and most memorable scenes in Star Wars. Whether that's Hoth, whether that's the carbonite scene. Bespin is still my favorite like setting, I think, of any Star Wars planet. I still love Bespin the most. We got Lando, we got the introduction of Yoda and the whole training and everything like that. The famous fight scene between Vader and Luke, and then of course the huge reveal of I am your father. So all of those put into one movie, it's perfect for me.
Uh-huh. The most kind of revealing scene is the fact that Vader is Luke's father, and for those people that are new into the Star Wars and they're gonna watch episode 1 through 6 in order, they don't get, it's not the same thing.
Well, that's the thing, because for me, if someone asked me what's the correct way to watch the Star Wars movies, what order would you put it in? I'd go 4, 5, 6,
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Then you can watch 7 and.
But then they're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. And then you have to explain it to them a little bit, but.
Yeah, but, if you watch it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it completely minimizes that scene. It's like, yeah, I already knew this.
I think it minimizes the entire trilogy. I mean, well, the entire series.
Well, basically, that scene, that line of "I am your father," that opens up the gates for the prequel trilogy to even happen. Now you want to see a prequel trilogy. And what's so cool about that line and that reveal is that back then there wasn't this speculation, there wasn't this conversation. It was like you watch a movie, you go home, and then maybe you're mind blown or whatever, but you never expected, because they told you straight up in the first one, yeah, your father died in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So you don't second guess it. You take it as it is.
Yeah. But which gives even more credence and more power to Vader as this villain. You're like, you just hate him even more.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh man, the Vader just sucks.
He killed Luke's father. And then when you get that, it's like, you can never recreate that reveal. I don't think a reveal, I mean, maybe we'll see, but there will never be another cinematic twist like that. I don't think anything can top that. And I wish I was alive at that time. I wish I was in the theater when that happened. Because like you hear like the stories, because like literally the only people who knew were like, of course, the actor who played Darth Vader, who was actually in the suit, of course, James Earl Jones, who had to voice Darth Vader, Luke, George Lucas, and then like I think it was like a really small crew for that scene, because it was so spoiler heavy that it was a real secret. So yeah, I mean, I think like Mark Hamill tells the story of like the premiere of when everyone saw it for the first time, and he was one of the only people who knew that this was coming, but no one, even people who worked on the movie, were like, what the fuck? And like, that's so cool. That's so cool to me.
When you're in a movie theater, you're hoping it's quiet, that everyone's quiet. But when you have a scene like that come out, that is an absolute true definition of dead silence.
Yeah.
Of just shock and awe, dead silence.
Yeah.
And you're just, wait, what? So, now, do you think that we're going to get anything like that in The Last Jedi?
Well, okay, so because
people are already going, oh, look, it looks the same. We've got the big at-ats and this whole kind of scene.
That's the thing, is that people have compared vigorously The Force Awakens to A New Hope, that naturally the sequel to the Force Awakens is going to be compared to the sequel of A New Hope. And we have the at-ats, we have the characters split up, I don't even know if we might have one scene with like Finn and Rey, but they're off doing different things. And so you're like, okay, is this Empire again? Ryan Johnson is too smart for that to happen. He's too smart for him to do a J.J. Abrams and follow. And it's about learning from mistakes. It's about listening to the fans. All these fans saying that it was a rehash, that Force Awakens was a rehash. So now you can't even have them even think that. You're going to make them think that. Maybe you throw in a few ads and stuff like that. Some imagery, maybe. But when you finally get into the movie, I think what we're going to realize is that it's a completely different thing that we've never seen before. So that's why, for me, I haven't been watching the trailers and stuff like that. Because
Right.
I don't want to, I just want to be surprised. And I want to be taken on this journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's finish up our initial thoughts on Empire Strikes Back, or being our number one.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll go real quickly into predictions.
Cool.
Of Last Jedi. So, Empire Strikes Back. It had the most iconic plot points. You had the building love story between Solo and Leia.
Yeah.
You had the reveal of Darth Vader as Luke's father.
Yes.
But the writing was better.
Yeah.
The emotional scenes were better.
Yeah.
I think the effects you felt more real. You were attached to them. The budget, it didn't seem like it was blown out of proportion. I mean, everything about the movie, you really just can't. There's not really anything in there that you can delve into and go, yeah, man, that just doesn't make any sense.
It's almost a perfectly built story, like the way it progresses and the way that it takes you through the characters and the reasons why people are doing things. You understand why Luke has to go off and do his own thing. And you feel something when he says, I need to go help my friends. And he goes and, that whole confrontation. You feel something when Han Solo gets frozen in carbonite. The writing is great in Empire, and that's what sets it apart from the other ones so much for me. All the story points are hit so well.
Now, do you think that, I mean, I don't think, this was the overall thought process of Lucas when he was making this movie, but when you really look into Empire Strikes Back, and you've got Luke on I'm probably gonna butcher this, Dantooine is where he went to meet Yoda.
No, Dagobah.
Why did I Dantooine? Okay, so he goes to Dagobah. He's doing his training. He's going through all that, but then at the end, he wants to leave, and Yoda and Obi-Wan are both going, you can't. You just can't do it. I mean, that would give me resentment towards these supposed Jedi and this good force of, man, I want to go help my friends. I need to do this. Yeah. And you're telling me just let them die? Like, why would I want to be part of your club? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Your recruitment tools suck. It's like, you need a better flyer, man. It's just, I don't want to be part of your club. It sucks over here.
And that's a thing that they really go into with the prequels, because the prequels, it shows the Jedi way and the certain rules and laws that they have to follow. But you understand that this is the rise of the dark side and the Empire. The prequels are. Yeah. But it's also the fall of the Jedi Temple and the Jedi Order because of these faults. You see the faults, and Anakin sees the faults. He's like, why do I have to do these things, and why can't I do these? And he brings up some good points, but in that moment where Yoda and Obi-Wan, who are from that Jedi Order, and they're like, yeah, you can't leave because you need to finish your training first. You can't go out and do this without becoming a Jedi first. Yeah. And Luke's like, you need to stick to our code. You need to stick to our stringent. Yeah. It's like, clearly you've never had friends or people that you actually cared for. So, yeah, screw you guys. I'm going to go help my friends, no matter what you say. And that's powerful. And it's just a cool, difference of perspective. And that's why Luke is such a lovable hero, because he's willing to do that for his friends and people he cares about, rather than the Jedi who would just be like, yeah, it's not our code, so yeah.
Yeah, if they're gonna die, then they, it's death is a part of life and blah 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 blah. So they're just gonna die and
It's
everything will be
yeah,
fine.
you guys can be force ghosts
Yeah.
and whatever, but
Yeah.
not everyone can.
Yeah, not
So-
everybody can be Wispy Casper. Yeah. All right. So, anything else about the rankings? Any other kind of thoughts?
One thing, like, I had heard this conversation about, like, Yoda, about the character of Yoda, and how, back then it was a puppet,
Mhm.
I prefer the puppet over the CGI Yoda.
Well, of course, yeah, everybody does.
Everyone does. And it's actually a huge testament to Frank Oz as an actor, and also Mark Hamill as an actor, because I don't think at one point in that scene, in any of those scenes, you're like, yeah, that's a puppet, and he's talking to a puppet, and like, because like now you have those scenes where someone's talking to a completely CGI person or character or whatever animal, and they're looking, but their eyes don't exactly match up.
Yeah,
don't you hate that?
There's a massive difference. Oh, there's so much of that.
Yeah, there's so much of that, but
Yeah.
like, it's a real, like, you should really applaud Mark Hamill and Frank Oz for their performances in that scene, because they make it so believable. It's like, yeah, there's this green guy, and he's crazy and whatever, but I'm going with it because it's so immersive.
It's immersive. It's engaging.
Great.
If you want probably one of the most distinct, I think, and I don't think a lot of people catch it, but at the end of the Phantom Menace, okay, at the very end when everybody's celebrating on Naboo, and you've got this big procession, at the very end of it, Natalie Portman, right, Padawan or Padme, she's got this big sphere of glowing whatever, and she's handing it to the Frog King dude.
Yeah.
Right? But she's like looking at her feet, or she's looking like she's just looking down. She's handing this other sovereign king of her planet this kind of token. She's not looking at him. She's not looking in his eyes. She's not looking at him at all. She's looking at her feet, and she's just standing there like this. Like I was told to stand here and hold this globe.
Yeah.
And then is the
it
scene
didn't look
over?
like she was handing it to anyone. It looks like
somebody say cut, please, because I'm just looking at my feet. It's so bad.
But there's so many other ones that are like they're supposed to be talking to someone, or they're supposed to be like interacting with someone, and it's like the word, like it's completely miscued. And
there's all kinds.
It's hilarious.
I'll tell you, if you want to trigger yourself, if you really want to trigger yourself, and I noticed this, and it immediately just cringes me every time. Throughout the first original three movies, all right, episode 4, 5, and 6. Okay, look at the smudges on Darth Vader's helmet.
Oh yeah,
it's so bad.
Yeah, no,
like
I've seen
his
that.
first scene in The New Hope. It's like, dude, did anybody wipe this down? And then there's other scene where it's just it's spotless. It's absolutely spotless. And then the very next scene, it's smudged to all hell and gone. And it's like, is anybody paying attention to this? I mean, wow, it's really funny.
That's great. That's great.
And before we go into predictions, this because I rewatched everything, and I need a point of view on this.
Okay.
And I know that Hollywood, and they do this because of certain things, and it's just a Hollywood thing. And spoilers to anybody who hasn't seen it, but I don't care at this point. Okay. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, when Padme is dying and she's giving birth, or they're taking out Luke and Leia. They're taking out the babies.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I'm under the impression that she's premature because she's not to full term, because she doesn't look like a giant pregnant lady.
Yeah.
In the movie,
especially with twins.
Yeah. But they take two giant full-size babies out of her and they present them to her, and I'm kind of like going, yeah, where did those come from? I was watching
you're
that,
getting way too
and I was
picky right
like,
now.
I'm like,
Too
why
picky.
am I obsessing over the fact that they're taking two giant babies out of this tiny woman that should only be about maybe 8 inches big, and they're like these massive babies, and
And there's two of them.
I'm going, why is this bugging me?
Apparently, it's still bothering
Yeah.
you.
Anyways, but all right,
Tangent.
okay, so those are our predictions. Not predictions. Those are our rankings for the previous movies. Okay, so I don't. It's gonna be hard to talk predictions with you because I've seen things that you haven't seen. So I'm actually interested in your predictions.
Okay.
I'm interested in your hopes and dreams, and you know.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you. I appreciate.
Tell me of your home world, Usul.
All right. Well, getting into it. All right. What's the biggest question for you going into this movie?
The biggest question for me, I want to know who the worst named villain ever is from. I want to know where Snoke comes from. I want to know who Snoke is.
Yeah,
that's my big question.
That's a big question. That's one of the biggest ones that I have as well. It's because we didn't get a whole lot of him in The Force Awakens, and yeah, I mean, I think he's an interesting character, but we know almost nothing about him.
Yeah.
So there's all the speculation and whatnot, and a million theories out there, but only one can be true, basically.
I need this to be good. I really need this to be good because I hate the characterization, the model, the look of Snoke so bad.
Yeah.
For me, it's so horribly done. I need a good reason for it. Like, you really need to sell me on this because it's going to taint the rest of my feelings on this kind of story.
Yeah.
Because not only does he look horrible and deformed and whatever, the naming, just like how he acts. I mean, it's just like you have all of this content of past and present and whatever to draw on, and you come up with this wrinkly, like, dude with a crevice down his face and who he looks like a mummy.
Well, again, so, I think
I need this. I really need this to sell.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate thing for me as well. Is we need some more insight into his relationship with Kylo. We need some more insight into how he got to this position. Why is he Supreme Leader? Why is he the leader of the First Order?
Yeah.
And also, why does he look like that? Why is he not with everyone else? Why is he on his own little planet or spaceship or whatever, away from everything? And why is his hologram like 30 feet tall? And what's so interesting is I think a lot of people, and this is again listening to the fans, hated the design, hated the look, hated that he was 30 feet tall. It dehumanizes the character, so you don't feel anything. So I remember a few months ago, there were reports coming out that Snoke was going to be more like animatronic, or like there's a physical Snoke that the characters are actually going to interact with, rather than this completely CGI version of him.
Right.
And you see in the trailer, you see a little bit of a close up on him, and he looks better than what he did in The Force Awakens. But I don't think we'll be able to really judge that until we see the full movie and what he actually looks like. And hopefully they go into why he looks like that and where he came from. For me, I don't actually have a theory on Snoke. Like, I just want them to give it to me.
Yeah.
Like, just give it to me, please.
Sell it to me.
Sell it to me. Because when you create theories, you're going to be disappointed when it's not your theory. So for me, that's why I'm not diving into it, speculating.
Yeah.
So
I'm not looking into it. I haven't thought about it. I just want it to work.
Yeah.
That is going to be the most critical point for me. I'm just going, everything else.
So how do they handle the Snoke character?
Yeah.
Is one big factor on your enjoyment of this movie, probably.
Well, I mean, because you have some massive shoes to fill, because Palpatine was he was the ultimate manipulator.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this guy was ridiculous. I think the only thing he didn't count on was the Ewoks.
Yeah.
That was the only thing he didn't count on. That was the
Yeah.
only thing he couldn't see.
Yep.
You know, which, yeah, I'm not going to go there.
Okay, go.
I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Another huge question is who Rey's parents are.
Yeah, everybody wants to know. You know, there's the theories and everything. Everyone's, you know, kind of wondering about this and that. And, you know, I think a lot of people want her to be, you know, in some way related to the Skywalker family, because this seems to be a Skywalker family kind of,
that's
you know,
the
movies, you know, story and stuff like that. But
but do you think it is?
Well, you know, there were some hints at spoilers in the Battlefront 2 game that came out if you played through the campaign, and I like those hints. I think if that is the actual where her parents are going to be, I'm completely cool with that.
Yeah,
I love the fact that it has, and this is whatever. I'm not going to say anything specific, but this is minor spoilers if anybody's listening. I like the fact that it has nothing to do with the Skywalker family.
Yeah.
You know, because that was always one of my questions, you know, thinking about and going through the whole series is like, yeah, man, back in the really, you know, before the end of the movies, you had Force users all over. This is a massive galaxy. We're not talking about one planet. This is a massive galaxy.
Yeah.
There are all these different races and cultures and all these people that are Force sensitive. And now what? Just because you know, Anakin killed them all at one specific time, you know, years ago, that there's no more.
Yeah.
That no more can emerge that either are or are not more powerful than the Skywalker family.
Yeah.
That's kind of thin. So I like the fact that they're hinting that, you know, this is who she is. It has nothing to do with the Skywalker family. I love it. I hope that is actually going to be the case.
So you hope that the hints in Battlefront 2 are
real.
True,
the true, you know, patronage of Rey. Yeah. I like it.
I would like it. I just don't think it is. I think it's a misleading kind of thing. I think Battlefront 2 was like, yeah, let's have some fun with people before The Last Jedi comes out. And yeah, they clearly are like, they're really teasing you with this. The way that they say it, the lines in Battlefront 2 and the way they present it, it's like, yeah, this is like pretty heavy-handed. Like, are you sure you're going to be telling me the lineage of Rey, the main character of the new Star Wars trilogy, in a video game? It's kind of like, oh, are you really going to do that? But for me, I don't think it is. But I also don't think it's that she's related to a Skywalker. I remember when The Force Awakens came out, I really wanted her to be like the granddaughter of Obi-Wan, but then that doesn't really work out. So ultimately, for me, my final kind of prediction on that is I just don't want her to be... I don't think she is going to be related to anyone that we know. I think people are like, yeah, she's like Palpatine's granddaughter or whatever. That doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Palpatine had no interest in a family or anything like that. That's why he had apprentices. That's why he had Darth Vader. Whatever, we can get into that. But yeah, so she's not anyone... She's not related to anyone that we know, I don't think. Even people in Battlefront. Either she is one of Luke's students of his Jedi Academy from when she was very young, and they wiped her memory. I still think that's a pretty possible thing. They wiped her memory, and after, you know, whatever happened, and they drop her on Jakku, and so she has that training from being a Jedi at the Academy, but then they wipe her memory, and then they dump her. And so when, in The Force Awakens, when you go from not knowing anything about the Force to, you know, doing mind tricks and stuff, that can kind of explains it, for me, at least.
I hope that's not...
I mean, I don't know, because... because like with that one scene in Force Awakens,
that's bad for me. That's bad storytelling. It's a cop out.
It explains it though.
But it explains it in an easy way. I.
But okay, so you would rather her just inexplicably be good at Jedi mind tricks out of nowhere rather than explaining it.
I I think there's. I'm hoping for a better explanation than, oh, she was here and then we wiped her memory.
No, they're not gonna. When you say it like that, it's like, yeah, you say anything like that, it's gonna
Like
sound
that.
like
I mean, that's been
nothing.
played out,
No,
So
but I mean, it's gonna be more complicated than that, I believe.
yeah,
But generally,
traumatic repression.
Yeah, and so when Kylo Ren kind of goes into her mind and is trying to find the map of Luke Skywalker, he unlocks something in her mind, and that's when she can look into his mind, and that's after that scene is when she starts using her Force powers. So that's the reason why I think that. It's like somewhere deep down she had that training. She knows how to do all this, and that thing that Kylo Ren did accidentally is unlock that, and that's why that all happened. But anyway, either that or she's like the daughter of some of Luke's students that he was training, because I think after Return of the Jedi, he wanted to meet and kind of train Force wielders and Force users. So he went out and kind of recruited people of his own. So if he went out and he knew other Force wielders and they had a kid and it was Rey, maybe he didn't know her personally, but maybe he knew her parents, and that's why, she's so powerful, is that she's the daughter of 2 Jedi, whereas even even Luke and Leia were the children of only 1 Jedi.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately, I just don't think she's related to any of the characters that we know and love.
I hope she's not related. I like the standalone kind of theory.
Because if she's like related to Luke, again, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like Luke, again, had no interest in a family. He was devout in his Jedi training, and that's what he wanted to do. And
he did have an early thing for his sister.
Yeah, but of course that was before. That was before he was a Jedi. Come on, gotta forgive him for that.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to touch on like the Battlefront and how you think that would kind of play into the Last Jedi. Because like there's one scene in Battlefront 2 with I forget his name, the other character, and Luke on this planet, and Luke gets this compass from like the Emperor's like secret observatory or something, whatever
hidden
it's called.
Stash of relics. Yeah.
I think that at least is going to play something into the Last Jedi. Like we'll probably even see that compass.
Well, here again, it depends on how they mix it in, because you have this storyline of, we only see a little bit of the Emperor in the original movies, and you get this sense of Palpatine's ability to plan and compensate for all these things years in advance.
Yeah.
And one of these hidden kind of agendas of his was that, and again, this is having people go outside the film media for canon items, where you have Palpatine discovering all of these ancient relics and all these ancient kind of Jedi or Force ability, Jedi and Sith relics from the past to accumulate and store more power.
Yeah.
It would be hard for them to touch on that, and for it to have any kind of relatable content or context without I think losing people in your audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think for these kind of things, you present them in a way that it's like, but like people who have looked into it, like us, we're like, oh, that's the compass from Battlefront. Whereas people are just gonna be like, okay, that's a compass, it's an old relic or whatever. But like that, and then like Shattered Empire is this comic series that was like a journey to the Force Awakens that was released before the Force Awakens came out, and there were a few stories, and actually there's a lot of things in Battlefront 2 that are actually in Shattered Empire, which makes it even more interesting. But there's one more thing in Shattered Empire where Luke has to go into this Imperial facility to retrieve a Force tree. There's like 2 Force trees, and they're from the original Jedi Temple, and they're just like this embodiment of the Force, basically. These 2 trees that the Emperor kind of stowed away, and in the comic, Luke goes and infiltrates this facility with the help of Poe Dameron's mother, and they go and they fight their way out, but they grab these trees, and he gives one of them to Poe Dameron's mom, and at the end of the comic, you see her and her husband on Yavin 4 or whatever planting the tree, and it's like, okay, so initially going into the Force Awakens, I was like, so is Poe going to be a secret Jedi or secret Force wielder, because he's basically going to grow up with a Force tree outside.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, because it would make sense because he's such a good pilot.
Yeah, but the other thing is, like, what did Luke do with the other Force tree? And so
he smoked it.
But he goes
made this giant Force doobie, and he just smoked out.
Wow.
That's why he's on an island. Right? He still has some leftover stash.
That's what all the clouds are.
That's all the clouds are.
Yeah.
That's why the porgs are all like cool and cute, because they're all smoked out. They're like, bro, man, this Force weed is the best.
Oh, man. That's so good. Okay. I can never say Force tree again.
Not without thinking about Force weed.
Yeah. But yeah, so what happened with that other tree? Did he plant it, and was that kind of the focus of his Jedi temple, like Luke's new Jedi temple? And I think hopefully we'll see that, because I wanted to see that in The Force Awakens, but we got like 2 seconds of Luke. We had no explanation of anything. So I think in this one we'll really get...
I don't think it's a story that's important.
It's not a story that's important, but for me, like, those are some things that should be connected. Because
you're looking for Easter eggs.
Yeah, like I'm looking for the deep rooted stuff.
Yeah.
Are we gonna have a flashback of? Because we kind of got a flashback in The Force Awakens
of the destruction of Luke's temple. I mean, I think that storyline is gonna have a little bit more fruition to it.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna give us a better base of where Kylo's from, kind of, where his mindset is, how Snoke interacts with all that.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to give us a better understanding of where Luke is at as far as, a person. I don't think it's going to play out between Luke and Rey the way people think it's going to play out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's some hopes that people want. There's some expectations that people want. I'm interested to see kind of how it all develops. Yeah, okay. That's all I can say on that.
So going into that, we kind of touched on this a little earlier, but where do you think Luke is at as far as the light to dark spectrum? Because I have my own theory.
I'm not really sure. I think that he understands the lines.
Yeah. And he plays within these.
I think that, at the end of Return of the Jedi, we kind of get this understanding that, he built a temple and he wanted to train Force users. I think that was his kind of way of going, yeah, I'm a Jedi. I'm on this side of the Force. I'm a good person. I believe in this, that, and the other. Whether or not he kind of held to those strict codes of training that the Jedi are so kind of rigid about.
Yeah.
But I think that the destruction of that temple, through Kylo or whatever, and him just kind of like walking away and going, look, I've come to the point where I understand that there's a natural balance to it and there's an unnatural balance to the Force.
Yeah.
I can't be on one side or the other. I see what the dark's about. I see what the light's about.
Yeah, it's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum, and I'm comfortably in the middle.
Yeah.
So whether or not he's a gray Jedi, in any kind of form or whatever. But I think that that's the point that he's at.
Yeah, because it's said in its fact that he did try to do a Jedi temple, and it did fall. And also, I mean, you could say that it's Kylo Ren, but Han Solo says in The Force Awakens, like, one student turned against everyone and destroyed it all. He doesn't actually say a name or anything like that. So there could be a twist where Kylo Ren is not the person who did that. Maybe it was actually Snoke. Maybe it was someone else.
Yeah.
And Kylo Ren just kind of fell in line with that and started this Knights of Ren. And that's another question about the Knights of Ren that I want more explanation of that. Who are the Knights of Ren? Who are these other members? And are they just as powerful as Kylo Ren or whoever? What threats do they kind of bring?
Right.
But going back to where Luke is, I really think he is a gray Jedi, and that's the whole point of this movie. That's why it's called The Last Jedi. If you go and look at the crawl, like the beginning text of The Force Awakens, it literally says Luke Skywalker, The Last Jedi. He's not about the Jedi Code anymore. So he's not going to be he's not calling himself a Jedi anymore, basically. He's not upholding himself to those standards. He's not light, he's not dark. He's doing his own thing. And if you've been paying attention, like we have with like Star Wars Rebels, they really are they're really giving you that idea of maybe there's a in between. It's clearly there, and there's clearly something that they're trying to say.
I'm actually kind of curious on why they would push that sort of agenda. I mean, because typically you have a good and a bad. You have a light side, a dark side. You have a good, you have a hero, you have a villain. And now we're getting into these questions of, okay, well, there's this in between. Okay, that's fine. But where does the in between stand as far as on whose side?
Yeah.
Like where are you gonna are you gonna sometimes? Oh yeah, I'm gonna buddy up with my dark side guy, because I'm all about what he's doing today. But then tomorrow I'm gonna buddy up with my Jedi, friend.
But what I think is
it's just
not
kind of a weird agenda to push.
I could see where you're coming from.
Where most people, especially moviegoers and audiences, they want an absolute. Who's my hero? Who's my villain? All right, where's the conflict?
But I just don't think there's these strict rules that they need to be applied to, and that's where Luke is at. It's like, I don't need to be a Jedi. I don't need to follow all these rules. I'm going to deviate from that. I'm still a good-hearted person, and I'm still whatever. But I'm not a Sith. I'm not killing kids and stuff like that. I'm not killing people just because they don't agree with me.
Right.
But a gray Jedi is someone who is in between, not morally. It's just that they're just not the Jedi that you would find in the Jedi Temple and like the prequel kind of things.
Gotcha. But I think The Last Jedi is going to take us to a place where we're not expecting.
Yeah, hopefully. Do you think this is like a little geek question, but do you think do you think that Luke is gonna fight anyone, or do you think we're gonna see him with a lightsaber?
That's a good question.
Because some people might say he's so powerful that he doesn't need it anymore, just like you didn't see Yoda with a lightsaber in the original trilogy.
Well, okay, so
I know.
Yeah. I mean, but that's going to go somewhere else. I mean, either they're going to introduce something that nobody's seen before, because if you're in a conflict, you're either tearing things out or throwing things around with your force powers. You're using a lightsaber, or as the Sith, you use lightning. I mean, if Luke gets into a conflict, and yeah,
Rey?
There's certain there's certain things I can't say.
Oh no. See, okay, so
I don't know. I don't know if he's specifically going to get into a conflict. I think that I mean there's definitely going to be a conflict with Snoke. I think that's inevitable in this film. But I don't know if it's necessarily going to be between Luke and Snoke, or Rey and Snoke, or Kylo and Rey.
Do you think? Do you think?
Or,
Another question is: do you think Snoke is going to be wielding a lightsaber, or is that just too weird?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I mean, Snoke seems.
I can't see Snoke with a lightsaber.
I see Snoke as like that emperor kind of. You know, he's on the throne, and then maybe he might zap some people, but. I'm hoping that we see another confrontation between Luke and Kylo.
That's what I want.
That's what I'm hoping for. If there's, whether we see it, I'm not sure.
Of course, I'm
hoping to see that.
I do want like a rematch between Kylo and Rey, but the real thing that I want to see is a confrontation, maybe even with lightsabers, with Luke and Kylo. I think that would be incredible. And one thing that I want with Kylo is, a lot of people talk about, is he going to be redeemed in this trilogy or not? He did, after all, kill his father, one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars. So is there even room for him to be redeemed? But I think, and you kind of see it in the trailer, at least the trailer that I've seen. I haven't seen a whole lot of other things, but I still think that Kylo Ren is kind of grappling with his light side. But you know what? You never know. And I would like him to take that plunge into complete darkness and you see him really be evil. But again, this kind of agenda that they're pushing is there's room to kind of go in either direction, even for dark side users. So who knows? If we do get Luke with a lightsaber, I do want him to have a white lightsaber, because we've never seen that in the movies. I do think that's going to happen. Actually, I don't think that's going to happen, but I want it to happen. He's probably just going to have his green one, if anything. Some people are saying because of all this red with the posters and stuff like that, that we're going to see Luke with a red lightsaber, but I don't think we're going to see
Luke with a red lightsaber.
I think that's way
I mean, from the previews, we see Rey with Luke's blue lightsaber. I hope, maybe not in this one, I hope at least going maybe into the last movie, I would like to see Rey with a staff saber, because she's, clearly, the whole first movie, she has a staff and she's used to a staff, and she's trained with the staff. So I'm hoping that, whatever.
So you're talking about like a double-sided lightsaber, or
just something we haven't seen, or it could be like a Darth Maul kind of thing, which would be cool.
That'd be cool. I could see her with that.
But it makes more sense to me because she's comfortable with that type of fighting, with that fighting style.
Exactly.
So and then from what I've seen, just from the end of The Force Awakens and a little bit of the previews, it doesn't look like she's very comfortable with with the lightsaber. It just doesn't look comfortable for her. So I'm hoping that they kind of like go into that direction. That would be fun.
Now, do you think that Rey is potentially gonna delve into the dark side?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No. Here's the thing. One of the things that I think pushes someone into the dark side is betrayal.
Okay.
There's nothing really for, and there's probably some storyline that we don't know about. As far as Rey's past, but there's nothing for her to betray. And in this sense, like for instance, if she was to like buddy up with Kylo, she initially felt the affinity with Han as like this missing father figure, and Kylo killed not only his real dad, but her fictional dad in that scene. So
they can never have a relationship in a positive way.
Yeah, like I don't think that like she's going to. They might.
Well, here's the thing.
They might buddy up for something, but I don't see him turning her to the dark side.
Well, here's the thing.
I don't see that as a possibility.
I don't think Kylo, if she's going to go to the dark side or be tempted, it's not going to be Kylo. It's going to be Snoke.
It'll be Snoke.
Because what Snoke is actually doing is he's only using Kylo to get Rey. Like, once he gets Rey, if he gets Rey, he's throwing Kylo in the garbage. He doesn't, and you can tell like he doesn't care about Kylo. He's controlling him. He used him to kill Han. He used him to he's his foot soldier basically.
Yeah.
To do his dirty work. But yeah, now that he knows that Rey is out there and she's powerful, that's what he wants. And that's why at the end of Force Awakens you have that line of, hey, if I can be your teacher, follow me, we don't have to be fighting right now. I can be your teacher. And so yeah, I think that's the ultimate end game for Snoke, at least, is to get Rey to turn. Whether or not Kylo lives or dies, I don't think Snoke even cares.
I don't think he cares.
Which is like super sad to me, because that's the whole reason why Han and Leia are not together, is because he was taken from them. So, well, that's one of the reasons. But no, there's so many questions, and I just cannot wait for this.
A couple more days,
and like we might have a Blade Runner 2049 thing where you don't actually get an answer of 30 years of speculation.
Yeah, I know,
and you don't even get an answer to the biggest question that you have. So but we also have to remember that this is also the second movie in a trilogy. So I mean, Return of the Jedi is the one that we finally got to see that Luke and Leia are brother and sister. So there's still a lot of room to do things in a whole other movie. So if we don't get things in this one, we'll hopefully get them in the last one.
And then we have Abrams is back for the third one, right? He's directing. Okay.
And he's even said that he's taking lessons from The Force Awakens and putting them into this last one.
I hope so.
Because he actually had no intention of coming back, because they had a director.
Yeah.
But when they came up to him and was like, hey, do you want this? He said that he couldn't pass it up. But he's going to come into this with the lessons that he's learned from Force Awakens.
Well, Mr. Abrams, here's your biggest clue. Do not start the movie with a Jabba scene. If you start it with a Jabba scene, then everybody's going to go,
and don't
look, you're just remaking Return of the Jedi.
And don't end it with the Starkiller Base 2. That's halfway done.
Please
don't. And don't end it on a forest moon called Fendor.
We have this unlimited budget to turn planets into giant lasers.
I know, right?
Yeah. Anywho, so that was some fun stuff for Star Wars.
Yes, a little Star Wars episode, or a large
Star Wars episode
for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed.
So geek out, have fun, go see the movie. We'll be talking. I'm sure we'll be talking about it next week after we watch it this weekend. But that's it for us on mega episode 10.
Yeah, super episode.
Post-production podcast.
Yes. If you guys want to reach us, let us know what you guys think. If you have any ideas, speculation, theories if you want to get your theories out before The Force Awakens or before The Last Jedi comes out, email us at postproductionpod@gmail.com. If you get something right, we'll let you know. yeah. It'd be fun to play on some feedback from the audience. Yeah, especially after we see the movie. Yeah. Otherwise, guys, we're also on Twitter, Instagram. Also, tell a friend, leave a like, subscribe. All of that good stuff. Yeah. Put a thumbs up. Write a review on iTunes. You can find me at Mr. Drew LV at Twitter, and me at Adam Scadam on Twitter. That's about it, guys. Enjoy. Have a great day. Have fun. Bye. Bye.